I arrived at my brother's wedding with my heart full of hope, wearing the pale blue dress I'd saved 3 months to buy. The venue was stunning. White roses everywhere, string lights casting a golden glow over perfectly arranged tables. I walked into the reception hall, searching for my name among the place cards. Table 1. Table 2. Table 3. My name wasn't there. I checked again. And again. My hands started shaking as I realized what was happening. There was no chair for me. My own brother's wedding, and I didn't have a seat. I stood there, frozen, holding my small gift bag, feeling every pair of eyes in that room start to notice me. The girl without a chair. The sister who didn't belong. That's when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around, and there she was, Melissa, the bride. My new sister-in-law, wearing her perfect white gown, and that smile I'd seen in all the engagement photos. She leaned close to my ear, so close I could smell her jasmine perfume. "We didn't think you'd actually come," she whispered. "There's no room for you here. Maybe you should leave before anyone notices." I felt my throat close up. My vision blurred. "What? What do you mean?" I managed to say. She pulled back, her smile never fading, and said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "Oh, sweetie, didn't Jake tell you? We had to make cuts. You understand, right? Budget and all? But I'd already paid for my own meal when I RSVP'd 3 months ago." Someone laughed nervously behind me, and I realized my brother was watching from across the room, his face completely blank, like I was a stranger he'd never met before. The music kept playing. Guests kept chatting. The world kept spinning while I stood there like a ghost nobody wanted to see. I looked around desperately, hoping someone, anyone, would speak up for me. My Aunt Carol glanced at me, then quickly turned away. My cousin Sarah pretended to be fascinated by her phone. Even my grandmother, the woman who raised me and Jake after Mom died, sat at table 1 staring down at her wine glass like it held the secrets of the universe. Nobody said a word. Melissa touched my arm with fake concern. "Honey, you're making a scene. This is my day. Don't ruin it." "I'm not trying to ruin anything," I said, my voice cracking. "I just want to celebrate my brother's wedding." "Your brother?" She laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the music. "Jake has moved on from his old life. From his old family. This is his new family now." She gestured around the room at her relatives, her friends, all these people I'd never met. "You don't fit here anymore, Emma. You never really did." I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of her. Jake finally walked over, his expression tight and uncomfortable. "Jake," I whispered, "please. Tell me this is a mistake." He looked at Melissa, then back at me. Maybe it's better if you go," he said quietly. "We didn't plan for you. There's literally no seat. You invited me. I have the text message." The room went silent. The DJ stopped the music. Every single person turned to stare at us. My brother's face went red. "Lower your voice. You're embarrassing yourself." Melissa looped her arm through his. "See, I told you she'd cause drama." "Your sister always does." I'd never caused drama in my life. I was 24 years old, working 2 jobs to support myself, and I'd done nothing but love my brother unconditionally since we were kids. But somehow I was the villain in their story. I should have left. I should have walked out with whatever dignity I had left. But something kept my feet planted on that polished floor. Maybe it was the memory of Jake and me as kids, sharing a room in our grandmother's tiny house after the funeral. Him crying into his pillow every night for a year. Me holding his hand in the dark, promising we'd always have each other. "Jake, please," I said softly. "It's me, your sister." He wouldn't even look at me anymore. Melissa stepped forward, positioning herself between us like a barrier. "Let me make this crystal clear," she said, her voice sweet as poison. "Jake doesn't need you anymore. He has me, he has my family. People who actually have something to offer." "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. She looked me up and down, her eyes lingering on my discount dress, my worn shoes, my simple hairstyle. "It means you're poor, Emma. You're barely scraping by. You work at a diner and clean houses on weekends. What could you possibly contribute to Jake's new life?" The words hit me like physical blows. His new life? He's a mechanic at Joe's garage. We grew up in the same house with the same nothing. We're different now, Jake finally spoke, his voice hard. I'm building something. Melissa's father owns 3 car dealerships. He's making me manager of the new location. We're going places. And I'm what? Dead weight? Melissa smiled. You said it, not me. I looked around at all these people in their expensive clothes, holding champagne glasses, judging me with their eyes. My grandmother still wouldn't look up. That hurt more than anything else. An older man approached us, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my rent. Melissa's father. Is there a problem here? He asked, his tone making it clear I was the problem. No problem, Daddy, Melissa said. Just an uninvited guest who's leaving. I was invited. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands, scrolling frantically for Jake's text from 3 months ago. But before I could find it, someone else spoke from behind me. She's not going anywhere. I turned around and my heart nearly stopped. Standing there in a perfectly tailored navy suit was Daniel, Jake's best friend from high school. The guy who disappeared to law school 5 years ago and never looked back. Daniel? I breathed. He walked forward, his jaw tight, eyes locked on my brother. Jake, what the hell is this? Daniel's voice was controlled but dangerous. Jake's confident expression faltered. Dan, this isn't your business, man. Not my business? I fly back for your wedding and I find your sister being publicly humiliated at the door? Melissa stepped forward. She wasn't on the final guest list. Simple as that. Daniel pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket. Really? Because I'm looking at the guest list from 2 months ago, and Emma Mitchell is right here. Table 5, seat 3. The room went dead silent. Things changed, Melissa said, her voice losing some of its sweetness. We had to make adjustments. Adjustments? Daniel looked at her like she was something he'd scraped off his shoe. You mean you deliberately removed his sister from the seating chart? She doesn't belong here anymore, Jake said, and those words broke something inside me. My own brother just said I don't belong. Daniel shook his head slowly. I can't believe you, Jake, after everything Emma did for you. What did she do? Melissa snapped. Please enlighten us. Daniel turned to me, his expression softening for just a moment. Should I tell them, Em? Or do you want to keep being the saint who never asks for credit? I couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down my face now, and I didn't care anymore. Daniel turned back to the crowd. When Jake got arrested for drunk driving 3 years ago, who paid his bail? Emma. She emptied her entire savings account. $2,000. Jake's face went pale. When he couldn't make rent and was about to be evicted, who let him sleep on her couch for 4 months? Emma, even though she was living in a studio apartment and gave up her own bed. That's not... Jake started. I'm not finished. Daniel's voice cut through the room like a blade. When your grandmother had her stroke last year, who took leave from work to care for her? Who sat in that hospital for 16 hours straight? Silence. The silence stretched out like a living thing, suffocating everyone in that beautiful reception hall. I could see some guests shifting uncomfortably, whispering to each other, looking at me with new eyes. But Jake just stood there, his arm around Melissa, his face carved from stone. That was all in the past, he finally said. I've moved on. Moved on? Daniel's laugh was bitter. You mean you married into money and decided your sister wasn't good enough anymore? Melissa's father stepped forward, his face red. Young man, I don't know who you are, but this is a private event. I suggest you watch your tone. I'm Daniel Crawford, attorney at Crawford and Associates in Manhattan, and I'm telling you that your daughter just committed actionable fraud. The word hung in the air like a bomb. Excuse me? Melissa's voice went shrill. Daniel held up his phone. Emma paid for her meal in advance. $300, transferred directly to the wedding planner's account. I have the receipt right here. She was entitled to attend, and you knowingly excluded her. That's ridiculous, Melissa sputtered. We'll refund her money. It's not about the money, I whispered, finding my voice at last. It's about my brother looking me in the eye and telling me I don't belong. Jake finally met my gaze, and for a split second, I saw something there. Shame, maybe, or regret. But then Melissa squeezed his hand and his face hardened again. Emma, you need to understand. Melissa and I are building a life together, a successful life, and that means making difficult choices about who we surround ourselves with. Difficult choices? I'm your sister, not a business decision. My grandmother finally stood up from her chair at table 1. Everyone turned to look at her. She walked toward us slowly, leaning on her cane, her face pale and drawn. Grandma, Jake said, his voice uncertain now. You understand, right? This is for the best. She stopped right in front of him, and then she did something I never expected. She reached up and slapped him across the face. The sound echoed through the entire hall. You, she said, her voice shaking with rage, are not the boy I raised. You are not the grandson I loved. You are a stranger wearing his face. Jake touched his cheek, stunned. Melissa gasped. How dare you? Security! But my grandmother wasn't finished. My grandmother turned to face the entire room, her small frame somehow commanding every ounce of attention. You all want to know who Emma really is. Her voice was stronger now, steady. Let me tell you. Grandma, please don't, I whispered. She ignored me. When my daughter died, Jake and Emma's mother, Emma was only 9 years old. 9. And she became the mother her brother needed. She made his lunch for school every day. She helped him with his homework. She held him when he had nightmares. Melissa rolled her eyes. That's very touching, but I'm still speaking. My grandmother's voice cracked like thunder. Melissa actually stepped back. When I had my stroke last year, the doctor said I needed 24-hour care. Do you know what Jake did? She looked at him with such disappointment it made my chest ache. Nothing. He visited twice. Twice in 3 months. Jake's face was bright red now. I was busy with work and Emma quit her job, Grandma continued. She moved into my house. She bathed me, fed me, changed my clothes when I couldn't do it myself. She read to me every night. She saved my life. Tears were rolling down my grandmother's weathered cheeks. And this is how you repay her, Jacob? By erasing her from your life like she never existed. The guests were openly staring now. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked horrified. Melissa's father cleared his throat. This is all very emotional, but the fact remains that this is our event. Our money paid for this wedding. Actually, Daniel said, pulling out another document. That's interesting. Because according to public records, Jake and Melissa applied for a marriage license 3 weeks ago. And on that application, Jake listed his emergency contact. He held up the paper. Want to guess who it is? Melissa snatched at the document, but Daniel held it out of reach. It's Emma, he said clearly. Even while you were planning to humiliate her, Jake, you still listed your sister as the person to call if something happened to you. Jake's face went completely white. I forgot to change it, he stammered. Or maybe, Daniel said quietly, some part of you still knows who actually matters. Melissa spun on Jake. You listed her? Not me? Not my parents? Baby, I can explain. Explain what? That you're still attached to this. This poverty case? The cruelty in her voice made several guests gasp audibly. But then something else happened. A woman I'd never seen before stood up from table 7. The woman was elegant, probably in her 60s, wearing a stunning emerald dress and pearls that looked real. Excuse me, she said, her voice cutting through the tension. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I can't stay silent anymore. Melissa's father frowned. Catherine? What are you doing? Catherine. The name clicked in my memory. Melissa's aunt. I'd heard her mentioned during wedding planning calls Jake took at my apartment before he moved out. I'm doing what I should have done months ago, Richard, Catherine said, walking toward us. I'm telling the truth. Melissa's confident mask slipped. Aunt Catherine, this really isn't the time. It's exactly the time. Catherine stopped in front of me, her eyes kind. You're Emma, aren't you? I nodded, confused. I've heard about you. Not from Melissa, of course. From the wedding planner. She mentioned how you called 3 times to confirm your attendance because you were so excited to celebrate your brother's happiness. My throat tightened. Catherine turned to face Melissa and her father. I've watched you two manipulate this wedding from the beginning, cutting Jake's family out piece by piece. First his friends from the garage, then his grandmother was almost moved to the back table until I intervened. That's not true, Melissa protested weakly. Isn't it? Catherine's voice rose. I have the original seating chart, Melissa. The one before you and your father started adjusting it. Emma was supposed to be at the family table. Table 1, right next to the bride and groom. The room erupted in whispers. Jake looked sick. Melissa? Is that true? Baby, I was just trying to— Answer me! His voice cracked. Was my sister supposed to be at our table? Melissa's perfect composure shattered. Yes. Okay, yes! But I knew you'd never agree to remove her if I asked, so I just— handled it. Handled it? Daniel stepped forward. You mean you deliberately excluded her and hoped Jake wouldn't notice his own sister was missing? She doesn't fit with our new life, Melissa shouted, her voice desperate now. Look at her. Look at how she's dressed. Look at her cheap shoes and her drugstore makeup. I'm not having wedding photos with her in them. The words hit the room like grenades. Someone near the back actually said, Oh my God. My grandmother reached for my hand and squeezed it. Jake was staring at Melissa like he'd never seen her before. Is that really what you think? He asked quietly. That my sister isn't good enough because she's not rich. I think, Melissa said, her voice cold now, dropping all pretense, that you need to choose. Me and the life my family can give you. Or her, and whatever pathetic existence you'll have without us. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake stood frozen between his bride and his sister, between his future and his past, looking like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. I watched my brother's face cycle through emotions, shock, anger, confusion. And finally, something that looked like clarity. You want me to choose? His voice was barely above a whisper. Jake, don't, Melissa's father warned. Think about what you're throwing away. The manager position, the house we're buying you, your entire future. My future? Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean your future? The one you designed for me like I'm some kind of puppet. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. I'm so sorry, he said. I got lost. I got so caught up in this new life, this new money, that I forgot who I was. I forgot what matters. Jake, don't do this! Melissa's voice turned sharp with panic. Don't throw everything away for her. Everything? Jake pulled off his wedding ring and stared at it. What is everything, Melissa? A big house I don't own? A job with your father where I'll always be beneath him? A wife who's ashamed of where I come from? I'm not ashamed. But her voice betrayed the lie. Yes, you are, Jake said quietly. You're ashamed of me. The real me. The guy who grew up poor. The guy whose sister worked 2 jobs to keep him from being homeless. You wanted the version of me you could mold into your world. Daniel caught my eye and gave me a small nod. Proud. Catherine smiled softly and said to Melissa's father, You tried to buy a person, Richard. But some people can't be bought. This is insane, Melissa shrieked. Jake, if you walk away from me right now, you'll have nothing. Nothing. Jake walked toward me, each step deliberate, and stopped right in front of me. I'll have my sister, he said. I'll have my grandmother. I'll have my integrity. That's not nothing. That's everything. He pulled me into a hug, and I felt 15 years of brotherhood come flooding back. I'm so sorry, Em, he whispered against my hair. I'm so sorry. I couldn't speak. I just held him and cried. Behind us, Melissa was screaming. Fine, leave. See if I care. You're nothing without my family anyway. You'll be back at that pathetic garage covered in grease, going nowhere. Jake pulled back and looked at her one last time. Maybe, he said. But at least I'll be myself. He turned to the room full of guests. I apologize for the disruption, but this wedding is over. And then Daniel dropped the final bomb. Actually, before everyone leaves, there's one more thing you all should know about the bride. Daniel pulled out his phone and held it up so everyone could see the screen. 2 days ago, I received an interesting call from a colleague in Chicago. Someone Melissa knows very well. Melissa's face went from red to white in an instant. What are you talking about? She said, but her voice shook. I'm talking about Marcus Chen, your fiancé from last year. The room exploded with gasps and whispers. Ex-fiancé? Melissa shrieked. That was over a year ago. Really? Daniel swiped his screen. Because Marcus told me you called him 2 weeks ago. The night before your bachelorette party. Want to know what you said? Jake stepped away from me, staring at his bride. What is he talking about? Daniel read from his phone. Quote, I'm marrying this mechanic because his grandmother is loaded and doesn't have long to live. Once she's gone, and we get the inheritance, I'm divorcing him and coming back to you. End quote. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath my feet. My grandmother swayed on her feet. Catherine caught her arm to steady her. That's a lie, Melissa screamed. He's making that up. Marcus recorded the call, Daniel said calmly. I have the audio file. Would you like me to play it for everyone? Jake's face had gone beyond pale. He looked gray. You were marrying me for Grandma's money? No, baby, no, he's lying. Melissa reached for him, but Jake jerked away. My grandmother lives in a 2-bedroom house she's still paying a mortgage on. She drives a 15-year-old Honda. What money? Catherine spoke up, her voice sad. The life insurance money. From your mother's death, your grandmother received $500,000. She's been saving it to split between you and Emma when the time comes. Jake's eyes widened. I didn't even know that existed. Exactly, Daniel said. But somehow Melissa did. Care to explain how? Melissa's father stepped forward, his face purple with rage. This is slander. We'll sue you for every penny you have. Please do, Daniel smiled coldly. I'd love to present this evidence in court. Along with the emails Melissa sent to wedding vendors, specifically instructing them to exclude Emma from all planning discussions, and the text messages where she told Jake's friends from the garage that the wedding was postponed when it wasn't. More gasps from the crowd. Jake turned to Melissa, and I'd never seen my brother look so betrayed. All of this, he whispered. Everything, the romance, the proposal, the wedding. It was all fake? Melissa's mask finally crumbled completely. Not all of it. I did care about you, Jake. But yes, okay? Yes, the money was part of it. I'm 28 years old and I'm tired of living off my father. I wanted my own security. By stealing from my dying grandmother? She's not even sick. Anymore! She recovered! That money is just sitting there! The disgust on every face in that room was palpable. Even Melissa's own relatives looked horrified. Her father opened his mouth, then closed it. For once, he had nothing to say. My grandmother walked forward, her cane tapping against the floor, each step deliberate and strong. She stopped in front of Melissa. That money, she said quietly, was never for me. It was my daughter's life insurance. The last piece of her I had to give my grandchildren. And you thought you could manipulate your way into stealing it? Melissa's eyes darted around desperately, looking for support, finding none. I want you out, my grandmother said. Out of this hall, out of our lives. Now. This is my wedding, Melissa screamed. You can't kick me out of my wedding. Actually, Catherine said, pulling out her own phone, I can. I paid for half of this venue. Richard, I'm calling the event coordinator right now to end this. Melissa's father finally found his voice. Catherine, you can't be serious. She's your niece. And she's a gold digger who tried to scam a widow out of her dead daughter's life insurance, Catherine said coldly. I may be family, Richard, but I'm not blind. Get her out of here before I call the police myself. 2 security guards appeared at the entrance, summoned by the coordinator. Melissa looked at Jake one last time, mascara running down her face. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. No, Jake said, his voice steady now. Marrying you would have been. This is me fixing my mistake. The security guards escorted Melissa and her father out. Their exit was anything but graceful. Melissa, screaming threats, her father shouting about lawsuits, both of them leaving a trail of chaos in their wake. The remaining guests sat in stunned silence. Jake turned to face the room and said, "I'm sorry you all had to witness this, but I'm not sorry it happened. I almost lost the most important person in my life because I was blinded by money and status." He took my hand. "My sister Emma is worth more than every dollar in every bank account in this room. She's worth more than anything Melissa's family could ever offer. And I almost threw her away." I couldn't stop crying, but this time, they were good tears. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Em," Jake said, "but I'm asking for it anyway." I hugged him tight. "You're my brother. You'll always be my brother." Daniel walked over and put his hand on Jake's shoulder. "For what it's worth, man, I'm proud of you. That took guts." My grandmother joined our embrace, and we stood there, the three of us, surrounded by white roses and string lights and the wreckage of a wedding that never should have happened. Catherine approached us with a gentle smile. "The catering is paid for, the music is paid for, and I think we could all use some celebration after that nightmare. What do you say we turn this disaster into a family reunion?" And that's exactly what we did. The DJ played our favorite songs. We ate the expensive food. We laughed and danced and celebrated not a wedding, but something better. The truth. 3 months later, Jake moved back into his apartment above the garage. He's happier than I've seen him in years. Melissa tried to sue for emotional distress. Daniel handled it. She lost. And that life insurance money my grandmother was saving? She split it between Jake and me last month, while she's still alive to see us use it wisely. I'm starting nursing school in the fall. Jake is buying into the garage as a partner. And we have dinner at Grandma's house every Sunday, just like we used to. Sometimes the worst moments of your life lead you back to what matters most. Sometimes you have to lose everything to remember what you actually have. And sometimes, the people who try to erase you end up erasing themselves instead.